Our speaker today is no stranger to the Dixon. I think he spoke here several times. Most recently, when we first discovered boxwood blight in Shelby County, we had a boxwood conference, and we had folks from all over the country that came in and spoke with us about the severity of it and what we needed to do. So, for 36 years, Lynn Batdorf, he served as the curator of the National Boxwood Collection at the National Arboretum in Washington, D.C. From 2020 to 2025, he served as one of the advisory panel member for the Boxwood Blight Insight Group, an international interdisciplinary group team of research scientists sponsored by the USDA, and the objective was to safeguard boxwood from boxwood blight. Since 1985, Lynn Batdorf has served as the International Registrar Authority for Buxus. So that's the international authority on the genus Buxus. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in ornamental horticulture from the University of Maryland. He has written 6 books and about 80 articles on boxwood topics. He's published in many journals, and he's traveled internationally to lecture and consult on boxwood. This is his latest book, and it is, if you have the first book, this is a significant increase in thickness. This is a lot of work. This is the work of his lifetime. He spent a lot of effort. We do have a few copies here. If you're interested afterwards, you can get Lynn to sign those for you. And I think he's actually offering it for a reduced price for the Dixon today. So we're excited about that. But this is an amazing monograph on the genus Boxwood. Lynn is an honorary life member of the English Boxwood Society, the American Boxwood Society, the French Boxwood Society, and the German Boxwood Society. So internationally, he's done. It's a big deal to have Lynn here. We're thrilled to have him. And he gave a great presentation last night, and this is a relatively new presentation, I think, so we're excited to hear it. With that, I give you Lynn Batdorf.
It's wonderful to come back. It's really a nice place, and I want to thank you for coming. I like questions. You can ask questions in the middle. It doesn't bother me. I'll give you a fairly good answer. If you ask me at the end, I'll give you the long answer. So there you are.
It's poor form. If anyone knows me, I always lecture without notes. I think it's in poor form for any speaker to say what's on the screen or to speak from notes. So with an apology, I must use notes because this is the only second time that I've given this talk. It's a way different talk for me. This talk is not so much about the plants. Last night it was about the pathology, the physiology, the etymology, the horticulture, the abiotic conditions, the site conditions, the history, that kind of thing. Today is going to be quite different, as you'll learn. I'll save that kind of a teaser. For more than 40 years, I've served as the International Registrar Authority of Boxwood. I'm appointed by the International Society of Horticultural Science, who periodically publishes guide for the 700 and some registrars. I'm one of about 715 people, and so each of us are a registrar in different genus, and so I am Registrar of Boxwood. I work closely, believe it or not, with the Ilex Registrar, the Hemmercollis Registrar, a couple other registrars. We all have the same kind of nomenclature of taxonomy kind of concerns, and so so there's a hosta person, there's a Daloid guy, and there's an Ilex woman, and I'm just happen to be the Boxwood guy. So there you are. So it's a cool little fraternity. We get together every couple years and we confer about taxonomy and nomenclature concerns that we all have, because naming the plant is kind of a big deal, how it's done, so it's uniform is a big part of what we do. And as such, it's very important, demanding, and specialized work. I've been the International Registrar for so long, I've gone through 5 different editions of this reference. So one of my primary responsibilities is the various names of boxwood, that is to say, the comprehensive and systematic application of epithets. It's a lot of investigative work to correctly identify and apply the plant names, which can be grown in Seattle, New York City, London, Belgium, and be the same plant but have 10 different names. And so it's really a lot of concern, because different nurseries don't know what everyone has. And so with that investigative work, applying the correct names, which could be accepted or not accepted, or synonyms. That is to say, I can change plant names in boxwood. This also is very important, very demanding, and specialized work. This has resulted in me writing 8 books and about 80 peer-reviewed articles, and about 140, I don't count anymore, presentations in the US and Europe. One might suppose I've written and spoken about all things boxwood. But after all these years and all this work, there's still one thing left undone. It's probably the most important nomenclatural challenge I have been presented. This information is so critical, and I've been collaborating with other domestic international scientists, and which is why I have to read my notes. It's all a big deal to research these nomenclatural questions as well as their social implications. However, I've learned some individuals make no distinction in this, while others, those perhaps a bit more enlightened, this is of genuine concern. It's the difference between boxwood and boxwoods. Perhaps some of you have used this word interchangeably, blissfully unaware of their implications. Some people are utterly confused by this entire dilemma. Aren't these two words basically the same thing? Well, the short answer is no. A few years ago, I began to give this concern my full attention. I needed to get more information, so I started by traveling around the world. And in my defense, I didn't know these pictures were being taken at the time they were taken, except the bottom right one. That one I knew because I was facing the camera, so it was a bit of conspiracy. So I made a few stops along the way, in no particular order, starting in the top left and going clockwise: southern England, central Pennsylvania, the Republic of Georgia, Germany, France, and St. Louis. In my search, I remained tenacious and diligent. No challenge was too great. If you think about the U.S. Postal Service motto, neither rain nor snow nor gloom of night not. So neither rain or snow or gloom of night could deter me from my appointed rounds. In fact, I was boldly going where no man had gone before. Taking the U.S. Postal Service motto so seriously at times, I felt as I might qualify as an honorary postal service carrier. I think everyone is familiar with the zip code system for their mailing address. Well, there is a Mr. Zip, and from my zip code, I learned of my quest. I met Mr. Zip Code. He learned of my quest and agreed to meet with me. And so there I am with Mr. Zip. I then looked in the mirror, and I began to wonder, perhaps I had gone too far. Perhaps I needed therapy or a good pill. Fortunately, to my great relief, Boxwood is available in pill form. The label states, and I quote, "Used as a herbal supplement, 1 capsule 3 times a day with a glass of water. Ingredients: boxwood leaf, gelatin, water, period." It's amazing what you can find on the internet, isn't it? It was manufactured in Quebec, and it's a product. The product makes no claims, medicinal or otherwise. So after self-medicating with several doses, I quickly and completely recovered and was able to focus on my task at hand. With newfound clarity, I realized others had been afflicted as I once was. An unfortunate example is Dean Norton, a dear friend of mine and a former horticulturist at George Washington's Mount Vernon home in Virginia. He was curator for 60 years at that job. He retired, I think, 18 months ago. Yes, it was about 18 months ago. In a general disclaimer, your results for misusing the word boxwood and boxwoods may not be this dramatic. You could, for example, end up with a hairstyle like this. Here is Eric Fleischer, a former horticulturist at Battery Park in New York City, who happened to be in France at the time I took this picture. Now, here are 6 rather intelligent-looking individuals, and I'm confident they understand the meaning of Buxus, which is on the license plate of my very old pickup truck, which I don't have anymore. Yet, in my taxonomic innocence, I never imagined that they or anyone might misunderstand boxwood or boxwoods. How could all of this information be so confused? How could it have happened? Well, let's begin with an examination of the native Buxus. With 120 species on 4 continents, it enjoys a large, disjunct natural distribution. How is it possible to keep track of all of this? The best resource is the herbarium at the Royal Botanic Garden, Kew, in London. With over 7 million filed specimens, it's the 2nd largest herbarium in the world. Leningrad is the #1 largest herbarium. Kew, with its world-famous red metal spiral staircase, which I've been on many times because the boxwood are in these cabinets going all the way to the wall. So it's a world-famous red spiral metal staircase, way cool. This holds the most complete collection of Buxus sempervirens, of Buxus species anywhere in the world. On the right is a typical boxwood specimen from this herbarium, Buxus ekmani. It is a tropical large leaf species, one of the almost 3,000 specimens they have. I think it's 3,000. In the temperate regions, forests of Buxus sempervirens can still be found today. This forest is in Azerbaijan. There is nearly an endless variety of naturally occurring boxwood. The one on the left is in southern France. The one on the right is in northwest Greece. Some ancient boxwood forests have paths created by hikers and plant explorers. There are boxwood forests, and how cool is it to walk through a path like this underneath all the boxwood? Throughout Europe, there are many gardens dedicated to protect, display, and research boxwood. Postcard moments. Here's a very famous one. And the National Buxus Collection in Poland, only a small part of it. Herrenhausen in Hanover, Germany, way west of Berlin, very, very famous. They have more boxwood hedging parterres than anywhere else. I want to say it's 14 miles of boxwood hedging. It could be 13 or 17, I forget, but somewhere in the teens of miles of boxwood hedging in this garden. Really incredible. On the left is a boxwood alley at Burgh Castle in Officially County in central southern Ireland. It's in a Guinness Book of World Records having the tallest living boxwood hedge. Operative word being the hedge. What I show you is the inside. What I don't show you is the outside, because on the outside, it is hedged, straight sides, and it goes up about 20 feet. The hedge is 47, I think, feet tall. And so there's a little wooden plaque there that says, "This boxwood hedge is so tall, we don't have the equipment to shear it all the way up." And I'm thinking, I can put you the name of I can give you the names of some manufacturers that can shear that all the way up. But for the uninitiated, don't know, like, wow, that's so cool. That goes up 20 feet, and they can't even shear higher than that. But but there you are. So there are boxwood taller than this in southern Europe, Azerbaijan, Republic of Georgia, and Ukraine, poor Ukraine. You have box that I've seen, and so there are forests of it that are certainly taller than this, but again, this is a hedge to differentiate those that are not in a hedge, they're just naturally growing in a forest somewhere. On the right, in the Republic of Georgia, I forget where I was, and so what there is here is partially the ruins of an 8th century church. and it goes on and goes that way. It's no roof and all that. And so what they use today is the modern 18th century church. And that's what they use today. And so what did both share? The same plant. And so is it boxwood or is it boxwoods? But they both share the same plant. And so the reason for that, which I think I talk about, I do. I have to save that. Ulla is a good friend of mine, and I knew her, before the war, and she actually was the one that created my logo, and I've done some other things with her, and so she got to love this plant, and so this is kind of near her home, and so it shows a very small business district, and you can see the Buxus sempervirens grown as a hedge in that area. She's alive as far as I know. It's hard to talk to her. A lot of times she doesn't have electricity, but I try. I do know 3 of her relatives have died. Last I heard, she was still alive. This is, as Dale mentioned, this is a small part of the National Boxwood Collection. This was in a cherry picker. This is before drones. This is an old picture. And so I was up in a 50-foot cherry picker to take this picture. And it's a small part of the National Boxwood Collection. And I worked there for 36 years. And so, yeah, I'm kind of slow. It takes me 36 years to figure out one plant. So there you are. The German National Boxwood Collection, this is a little bit west in a very small city. It's not even a city, a town west of Berlin. And isn't this cool? This is in southern Maryland. And so you can kind of see the door entrance to it. And so 80 years, 120 years before this picture was taken, there was edging boxwood on both sides, and you would park your car in a circle, which is below the camera, and and walk on the path with boxwood on either side, enter the house. Well, time has a way of making things grow, and so the boxwood hedges coalesced together into one big boxwood, and then we opened up the center so you can walk through it and have the boxwood either side. Isn't that cool? And that's English boxwood. All 3 images are from different English gardens, and any respectable English gardener can always be found tending to their amazing garden of box. Any proper English gardener uses the common name box. They don't get confused by boxwood and boxwoods. This confusion might cause some to take flight. In the middle of a boxwood garden. This is at the National Arboretum. And so there you are. Let's consider a few places where boxwood is native. Dr. Edgar Anderson, top right, who in 1934 went to what was Yugoslavia, discovered Buxus sempervirens, Vadar Valley, in Vadar River Valley. This map on the top left, it depicts the area in 1930s. What's really cool is the center black and white image from 1934 shows the location where the cold hardy plant Vadar Valley was collected by Dr. Edgar Anderson. Way cool. And the bottom right picture is the original plant as an 80-year-old at Arnold Arboretum in Jamaica Plains, New York. Buxus sempervirens is an understory shrub requiring only dappled sunlight to thrive. Healthy natural populations are always found in forests. In this example, a mature forest of black pine is in the mountains of northwest Greece. And if you look very closely at the bottom of the frame, what do you see? Boxwood. Boxwood is an understory shrub. It's hardwired to grow in dappled sun, dappled shade. It's not a full sun-loving plant, which creates a lot of problems to the plant. Consider the small island nation of Cuba, which we need to talk about. There are 36 boxwood species which grow here and nowhere else in the entire world. Note the 2 small black dots near the very right edge to the right on the map. They represent the entire range of this very fragile boxwood species, Buxus mullerania. It grows only in these 2 small sites. I have to wonder if this boxwood species, and indeed the other 35, will ever grow, which grow only in Cuba, might survive. Let's take a different journey. Let's go back in time, back to 1792 BC. Let's visit the general location of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon next to the Euphrates River in the present-day city of Basra, Iraq. The Gardens of Babylon is one of the 7 wonders of the world. It was built under King Nebuchadnezzar II. A Greek historian in 450 BC wrote, "In addition to its size, Babylon surpasses in splendor any city in the known world. Indeed, the outer walls were claimed to be 56 miles in length, 80 feet thick, and 320 feet high. Boxwood was known to have been planted here." The gardens were built to cheer up Nebuchadnezzar's homesick wife. She found that the flat, sun-baked terrain of Mesopotamia depressing. After all, she had been raised in green, rugged mountains, and that was most familiar to her. The king decided to please her by recreating her homeland with an artificial mountain and rooftop gardens. While Saddam Hussein ruled Iraq, he attempted to restore portions of the wall of the Gardens of Babylon. This included etching his name into many of the newly installed stones. Here is one wall he did not restore. This photo was taken about 30 years ago. For the foreseeable future, this chronically volatile area of the world appears to be safe. Qumran is an ancient archaeological site in the West Bank of Israel. It is a dry plateau about 1 mile inland from the Dead Sea. Here is where the Isaiah scroll was uncovered. It says in chapter 30, verse 8, I quote, "Now go and write it to them in a table, and note it in a book, that it may be for time to come forever and ever." Well, boxwood tablets with their smooth, clean surface were well adapted to writing and was used to carry this message of Isaiah. It goes on to say further in chapter 41, verse 19, "I set in a desert the fir tree and the pine and the box tree together." Chapter 60, verse 13 says, "The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir, the pine, and the box tree, to beautify the place of my sanctuary." So boxwood is one of, I think it's 70, I know it's 70-something plants mentioned in the Bible. I forget exactly how many. And so it's been in cultivation for over 6,000 years, and certainly has a place in this point in history. The 6-sided prism was made in 705 BC. A baked clay is inscribed with 500 lines of writing. It records that Hezekiah of Judea had paid ransom to hold off the besieging of Jerusalem. It says here in part, I quote, "As for Hezekiah, the terrifying splendor of my majesty overcame him, and the Arabs and the mercenaries that he brought to strengthen Jerusalem departed him. He himself did send to me, together with 300 talents of gold, 800 talents of silver, gems, large cuts of red stone, couches inlaid with ivory, elephant hides, ebony, boxwood, and all kinds of valuable things, as well as his own daughters, his harem. And he gave them to bring Nineveh to my lordly city, to pay tribute and accept servitude." So imagine, if you can, in the year 705 BC, boxwood was so highly prized as to be counted among precious gems and elephant hides. In the 10th century, Homer, writing the Odyssey, he described the wanderings of Ulysses, where the ships of Myrtle sailed in seas of box. And so portions of the boat were made out of boxwood. On the left of the quote. In the Iliad, on the right, Homer describes the Trojan War and the yokes of the steeds driven by the king of Troy, which were, of course, made of box. Very few woods are as hard, heavy, dense, or as fine textured as boxwood. Fully dried, a cubic weight weighs an average of 60 pounds. It's twice as hard, twice as dense as oak. People think oak is a hard wood. I laugh. Boxwood wood is twice as hard, twice as dense. It has a specific gravity which averages 1.027 kilograms per cubic meter. Because water has a specific gravity of 1.0 at sea level, boxwood sinks when it's placed in water. There's 70-some woods that can do this. The hundreds of thousands of other plants, their wood floats all day long. There's only 70-some that sink because they're so heavy and dense. Boxwood is among these. So made entirely of boxwood, this tabernacle originally belonged to Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor from 1519 until his voluntary abdication to his younger brother Ferdinand I in 1556. The entire tabernacle on the left and the close-up on the right shows portions of it. This artifact was a hand-carved one solid piece of boxwood. When opened, the left side shows the bottom half with Christ on the cross. The right half shows Christ carrying his cross. When closed, it's about the size of a grapefruit, so it gives you some scale for the whole thing. So the detail and relief you can get on this is really incredible. It's a boxwood, the wood is compared to bone. It's so hard and dense. So if you have a really skilled craftsman that can work with it and can work with the wood well, the detail you get is extraordinary. It's incredible. And this was well understood. A variety of different measuring instruments, all made from boxwood. The deal is, before electronics, we used metals, instruments made out of metal to measure things. And before metals, wood was used. The problem with wood, and it's always outside exposed elements, you're measuring this and that, and artificial horizons and sections as you cross the Atlantic Ocean or whatever you're doing, you're exposed to temperature moisture fluctuations. Well, expose these temperature moisture fluctuations, the wood's going to expand or contract based on what the elements is. And so that gives you a less precise measurement because, like, if it's calibrated for this and expands to that, you're getting a false measurement. And so boxwood was used because it had almost no expansion or contraction based on temperature and moisture fluctuations because it's so hard-wooded. Boxwood was always the go-to wood because of that one characteristic. And so all these, there's a few examples of some of the things made out of boxwood wood. And it goes beyond measuring instruments too. Here's some contemporary objects made out of boxwood. Boxwood has even improved human health. Here is a set of, I can't make this stuff up, it's real. Here is a set of upper false teeth made in China in the 1800s. I was told this was found in the mud along the side of a single-lane dirt road somewhere in China. The dagger on the right is one of my favorites. It's mentioned in literature quite a bit. The blade is made out of solid silver, and the boxwood handle, of course, is boxwood. And it's one piece of boxwood. And so again, just, it's a four-sided thing. And so again, just, much like some of the things I showed you a little while ago, the carving and detail is just, beyond extraordinary. It's just really exceptional. So other than the loathsome muskies cat urine smell, others have a more favorable opinion of this fragrance. Is it odor or is it a fragrance? Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. was an American author and physician who in 1861 released his book, Else Veneer. I quote from this book, "They walked over the crackling leaves in the garden, between the lines of box, breathing in its fragrance of eternity." And it's this phrase, the fragrance of eternity, that has become the unofficial motto of the American Boxwood Society for the last 65 years. Katharine Hepburn, here in this promotional photo for the movie African Queen with Humphrey Bogart, was once asked about fragrances. She replied, "I don't use anything that smells good. I mean, no perfume, no scented soap. I do like the way boxwood used to smell on my grandfather's farm in Virginia." Dolly Madison was once asked what she liked about gardening. Her reply was, I quote, Above all else, I prefer the blending fragrance of sweet roses and pungent boxwood. And by the way, Dolly Madison, wife of President James Madison, who was responsible for saving his classic portrait of George Washington when the British misbehaved and partially burned the White House in 1814. Regardless if you consider it to be a fragrance or an odor, there was apparently at least one useful application. About the year 1000 AD in Abbey de Cluny, in the southern mountains of France, monks would cover their cups with a small twig of boxwood. The flies found this smell offensive and were repelled by it, leaving their coffee or tea unspoiled. Here's where I was going to talk about this. But boxwood has other virtues. They serve as sentinels, here protecting Apollo from evil spirits and other potential harm at the baths of Apollo in Versailles. And so the deal is, why boxwood? So this is a really cool thing at Versailles. And so, there's a pool, which you can't see off the screen to the right, and there's supposed to be water kind of coming out from inside the caves and kind of coming down a little waterfall, behind Apollo and kind of going down a pool. And then, this pool has the boxwood around it. And the question begs, well, why boxwood? Why not holly? Why not begonias? I mean, why not anything? And so it's a nod to evil spirits, which I mentioned briefly, protecting Apollo from evil spirits. Well, what does evil spirits have to do with anything? You have to go back to 13th century Eastern Europe. Still kind of the Dark Ages, coming out of the Dark Ages. 100-Year War, west of that's done. We're talking about Eastern Europe here. And very agrarian society. Food, fiber, building materials, clothes. Absolutely everything came from the land. Absolutely everybody was involved in some kind of agricultural production. And so people would be going about their business doing what they do. And so John just falls over dead one day. Wasn't in a battle, wasn't fighting anyone, wasn't previously sick, just the guy just died. And so as the town elder, the town wise man, this is a serious problem. This is a threat. Why did this guy die? So all the educated minds got together, conferred, like what's going on here? And so it's unseen, unheard, unsmelled, this threat that kills people. What is it? And so they all agreed, of course, it had to be evil spirits. And so being smart, intelligent people, they then began to wonder. And so the thought was then, as you walk past plants, the evil spirits would be lurking in the plant. As you walk past them, they would pounce on you and afflict you with whatever scourge they had. So logically then the question becomes, do evil spirits exist in all plants? Really astute question. And so they started examining the plants, and they did a bunch of different things. And long story short, one thing they did was put it in buckets of water. Well, you guys are an educated audience now, and so boxwood sinks in a bucket of water, easily distinguishing itself from its peers. All these other woods are going to float all day long. Well, look at that. Boxwood sank like a rock in a bucket of water. This has special, mystical, magical properties. Look how hard it is. We proved this scientifically. This is great stuff. Well, of course, everyone knows evil spirits, these lazy things, they're not going to take the time and trouble to bore in a hard wood, a boxwood wood. This is absurd. They're going to go in softer woods, fir, spruce, pine, oak. So every plant had to serve a function. And the function of boxwood, it was deemed to be pure and free of evil spirits, was planted around the foundation of a house or where people lived as a medicinal plant to protect the infiltration of evil spirits in the house. So that's why today people have boxwood around the foundation of the plant, and the more wealthy people would have a boxwood garden away from the house, an outer defense perimeter, if you will. And so that's why boxwood was first being used. That's why it was first cultivated, because that's the function it served. They didn't dare have the money or time to do it because it looked good or the really sweet fragrance or the loathsome odor that it had. No, it served an important function. This was a big deal to save your people, and that's why boxwood was first cultivated. So we're still at Versailles, and what's really cool is I was with a group of about 20 people a couple years ago, and the hall is a mirror, of course. And so what was really cool, it was closed. It was a bank holiday. And I was with a group of about 20 people, and so you can never, ever see this room that empty. And we had the whole palace to ourselves for, I think it was about 4 or 5 hours, I forget. And so just one thing there, but really, really fun. I own 107 different books on boxwood. Yes, there are that many. Really. At the risk of picking a favorite, I must mention the PhD thesis of Dr. Mathieu. In 1940, she successfully defended her thesis at the School of Medicine and Pharmacology at the University of Toulouse in southern France. She successfully survived, a terrible time to finish your PhD, 1940, France, there you are. But she successfully survived World War II, married, and had a long, successful career teaching pharmacology. So I was aware of her thesis, of course, but there weren't many copies around. Just to her defense committee, it was the only copies that were made. So I searched for a long time. It took me 30 years. I finally got lucky and discovered this company in a small town of Rodez, France, about 100 miles northeast of the University of Toulouse, where Mathieu earned her PhD. This copy was given to Dr. Sallier by Mathieu herself. Sallier was on the panel when Mathieu defended her thesis. In the bottom center of this image is the inscription inside the book where Mathieu wrote a personal note to Sallier acknowledging her appreciation for her work in the PhD. I'd really like to spend a whole day talking about the astute and comprehensive microchemical analysis of the 69 Buxus species of her 448-page, 6.5 by 11-page book. You guys aren't going anywhere till tomorrow, right? Yep. But unfortunately, this is not the time. But I would like to mention 85 years after its publication, it remains one of the most important contributions to understanding the microbiology of boxwood species to this day. Here are two botanically correct illustrations showing the male and female flowers, the ovary arrangement, and the fruit and foliage characteristics, all of which are used to distinguish boxwood from the hundreds of thousands of other plants. Remembering from a few slides ago, this plant excels in deterring evil spirits. So as a result, it's often planned to serve as guardians. For example, on the left, at the Winston Churchill gravesite, you can see it here, and on the right, around the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. So let's get to the point. There's lots of different boxwood. There's 1,507 different box, believe it or not, and that's what I do, what I enjoy. And so this is kind of a teaser of just some of the things, the way box can look like. The center bottom, the bonsai, is actually the National Bonsai Collection, National Arboretum where I work. If memory fails, I think it's 107 years old. It's Buxus microphylla compacta, and it's really a way cool looking bonsai tree. So there's all different kinds of boxwood. Buxus sempervirens prostrata at the bottom is a very low boxwood. Some are very tall. On the right, Buxus sempervirens derunc. And these have not been pruned, trained, no topiary specimens, no Photoshop. This is the real deal, okay? Buxus sempervirens fruticosa, the English boxwood at Longwood Gardens, is the big one. Buxus microphylla compacta, not bonsai'd. That was somewhere in England a long time ago. I've forgotten where. And there's lots of variegated boxwood. And there's a lot more than this. And if you don't like those, they come in different colors. And as a teaser, I registered this only a year ago, 14 months ago. It's not available in the United States yet. It's grown by a nursery in China. And I hope it'll take time, but I've made contacts here in the U.S., and we hope to bring some plants over through APHIS and all that and have it commercially available. I mean, how cool is it? Green is a wonderful color. I love green, but then red, lime, boxwood, or purple boxwood. Come on, really? It's true. You start playing with the carotenoids and anthocyanins and so on. It's a lot of fun things you can do. Some boxwood have very narrow leaves, and some are very wide. The closer you look, the more unique they seem to be. And I really like the one on the left, which I and my group found when we were in Azerbaijan, near the Iranian border. It was at an abandoned Russian hydropower plant along a stream in a valley area. And I had read in literature for a long time that there was boxwood with exfoliating bark. And I go, really? You know, I'd rather buy swampland in Arizona. I can't believe there's such a thing. It's true. There is such a thing as boxwood with exfoliating bark. Of course, then you generally have all the foliage around you, so you can't see it. And so, but botanically, it's like the best thing since sliced bread. And so we've had, I won't go into the story, but we've had lots of problems trying to bring it to the States. Rust has been the problem. And so, you know, it can't enter because of having the disease rust. And so, but it's just a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous plant. All of these plants and many more can be found in some of the best gardens in the world. And here's just a few, a very, very few. Like all living things, boxwoods are susceptible to some diseases. And last night I went into a lot of detail, but these are some of the big players with boxwood diseases. The one worth mentioning probably is the top left, which is box blight colonectra. Beatrice Honeycutt was a senior pathologist at RHS Wisley in 1997 when she discovered this, and I flew out and spent a week with her, a couple days in the lab, a couple days in the field to learn about this. And of course, then it hit the States later. And you know, boxwood has been in cultivation for 6,000 years. And yes, it has the normal insects and diseases. And so, yeah, it kind of, you know, like any other plant, you know, it has its occasional problem. But a real sucker punch, box blight and box tree moth, you know, within the period of about 15 years. And so everyone's saying, that's it, I'm done with boxwood, forget about it. Well, no. You know, think about how hard wood it is. It's so tenacious and such a long live plant. I've worked with boxwood 420 years old, still alive. I mean, come on. It's a long live plant. It's a very tenacious plant. And so you get a sucker 1-2 punch with blight and moth in 15 years and you're going to give up on it, move on to holly or some ground cover or something. I'm sorry, I'm staying with box. I won't deny and will freely admit that lots of cultivars today, you will not see 15, 20 years now. They're going to be gone. But actually, you know, when you're throwing lemons, you make really, really good lemonade. And so what's the breeding work that's being done, and I've been involved with a lot of it here in the States as well as in Europe, particularly Belgium, you know, not only blight resistant, but moth resistance. And you guys haven't been introduced to the box tree moth yet. You think this is a bad problem. Wait till you experience the moth, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, there's a couple of diseases, and I really don't want to belay the point. And they're also susceptible to some pests. And I think they speak for themselves. The bottom left one is a larvae of the box tree moth. And so what's interesting about that one, it's an Indonesia pest. And yes, there's boxwood that grow in Indonesia. Buxus microphylla vari japonica, Buxus coreana, have co-evolved with the box tree moth for millennia, several millennia. And so there's been natural selection going on. And so they coexist, they're fine. And so what happened is there was a shipment of something, cargo shipment from Indonesia to southwest Germany, and the moth hitchhiked in the packing material. And so the moth escaped. Unlimited food source, zero predators, bring it on, let's party. And in 2 years, it went all the way to the west coast and was in the British Isles. And so destroying forests of boxwood along the way. And so the first reports, of course, came from pathologists, entomologists who are not horticulturists, of course, and they would talk about the defoliation, which is fine, and they would say that they would also, after they finished that, they would eat the bark. And I'm saying, really? And so I went to Niagara Falls, New York area with 5 USDA entomologists a couple years ago, because it was in Canada a couple years ago, and they've been really, really fantastic with sharing information, because it was in Canada before the United States. And what happened is the moth came in thermal action, came across the Great Lakes, and came into the northwest New York area. And so I had seen some established populations there. And so, no, they don't eat the bark. What they do is they want the cambium underneath the bark. And so so that's what they're really looking for. And so it's a real difficult thing, and I spoke about this last night, to go from a really, really green plant, full health, and in 7 to 10 days, there's no foliage at all, and you just have a bunch of webbing material. Not a good day, but that's what it can do. And it will soon visit a boxwood near you. There's actually some good work being on it. I can talk to you about it later if you want. Boxwood are fun and beautiful. Again, the closer you look, the more you're likely to see. But in today's age with electronic payments and credit cards and that kind of thing, who really looks at money? Who really looks at what's in the wallet? And there you are. Boxwood is on the back, prominently featured on the back of the 5 and prominently featured on the back of the 20. You tell me what other plant is so prominently featured, and if anyone has cash anymore, I promise you they have a boxwood portrait in there. And tell me any other plant that does this. It's really cool. By the way, I've worked at both places for quite a long time, and a bunch of other places, but that's another time. So it's always boxwood. There's no such word as boxwoods. The word boxwood is both singular and plural. It is in fact correct grammar to say, I have 300 boxwood. You would never say, I have 300 boxwoods. So if someone casually walks up to you and say, well, ma'am or sir, I'm an expert on boxwoods. Let me tell you what's wrong with your plant. He says, thank you very much. Have a nice day. Okay, thank you. That's it.